All right, we are live. Happy Thursday, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. And let us know where you're joining from. Today, I am talking to a special friend, leader, dean of big data, none other than Bill Schmarzo. Bill is customer data innovation at Dell Technologies, a global innovator and educator in big data and data science with an impressive career that includes roles like Chief Innovation Officer at Hitachi, Vantara, and authoring four seminal books in the field. Bill is here to help us understand why becoming AI and data literate is crucial for everyone. I have Bill's book here that we are giving away today. AI and data literacy. I've read the book. I love it. And trust me, I want to give this opportunity to everyone. So what we're doing is doing an giveaway. What you can do is type in hashtag the Ravit Show, and what we'll be doing is giving away three ebooks, and we'll be doing these draws every 20 minutes from now, and there'll be three winners towards the end of the show. So feel free to type in hashtag the Ravit Show to enter the raffle. Also, don't forget to ask questions to Bill. Anything around AI and data literacy, but not only just that, you can ask him about data analytics, where's the space moving, generative AI, or anything you like, because I know Bill has great info around these topics. Without any further ado, I think let's bring Bill up here. Hey, Bill, welcome to the Robert Show. Yay! I'm so happy.
Hey!
So happy to have you here, Bill. First of all, we made it. We After just such short notice, we decided like this on Monday, and here we are doing it in obviously uh, talking about AI and data literacy. But for our audience, I'm pretty sure people would love to learn a little about you. What are you doing currently? And also, if you can introduce yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Ravit. So I'm currently the customer innovation lead and advocate inside of Dell Technologies as we are building out our data management products. So I'm sort of the voice of the customer, bringing it back to the product, and working with our different product and engineering teams and sales teams and such. But on the side, I'm still a teacher. In fact, I would argue that even in my job at Dell, I'm a teacher. When I work with customers, it's all about teaching. And for me, teaching is what motivates me. I love the opportunity to work with students and professional corporate students as well in trying to help them understand where and how can they apply data and analytics to deliver meaningful, relevant, responsible, and ethical outcomes. And it's really come around full circle, as you mentioned, Ravit, on this latest book, and helping us to think about it isn't just about building models, it's about ensuring that the models are delivering the right kinds of outcomes. And so, long story short, I love to teach. I write frequently. I write probably 3 or 4 blogs a month. I've got this is my fifth book, the AI and data literacy book, and I'm blessed and fortunate in that I work with some outstanding customers. I've got some very um, provocative students I work with, and some of my friends on social media aren't afraid to tell me, Schmarzo, you're full of crap, and they explain to me why. And so there's always a lot of learning going on in this space.
Okay, this is amazing, and I'm pretty sure, Bill, your insights for the folks who haven't read the book already. First of all, congrats on the book. I remember working with you on your previous book, which was with Pact itself, and we went out there and obviously made it reach places, and I still remember such great comments from the community, all the leaders, CDOs, even all the data professionals, out there were so impressed. And you did it again. And, I obviously want to learn more about what led you to write this one, AI and data literacy, and what made you realize that this was the topic that needed urgent attention. I'm pretty sure the audience would also want to learn about it. So yeah.
So I wrote this book, right? This is one we collaborated on.
Yeah, the
And
economics of data.
yeah, and that book was really geared around helping organizations to treat data as an economic asset, as a source of value creation. And it went through a lot of economic theorems. It created some new ones, and introduced some new ones around, data economic theorems like the data multiplier, economic multiplier effect, and such. And so, it was really designed to help customers understand, how do I get value from my data, and how do I provide a clear line of sight from the data I have to the value I need to create, right? And the key word there, of course, is value, which is why it's an economics conversation. So that book was very successful. I've run into many of my customers at Dell. One of them just this past week, a CIO held this book up in our meeting. Just as we started, and he said, "This book is my Bible," and that's great to hear because it's written from a very, very pragmatic perspective. It's not designed to hype data. It's not designed to it's meat and potatoes. Just do this, bring this. And that book was great, except it wasn't complete. Because what I found out as I talked to companies, it's like, yeah, we want to do this. And they started down this journey, excuse me, and they were building, applications to help drive value, but they weren't getting the kind of cultural transformation that they really needed and wanted. And if you think about the book, there's a chapter in the book that talks about the big data business model maturity index, and stage 5 in that is about cultural transformation. Mm-hmm. How do you create a culture of value creation through data? And while chapter 9 in this book, which is my favorite chapter, touched on it, it was incomplete. And I realized as I was talking to customers and my students that I was missing a huge part. That, yeah, this was great for executives. This was great for data science teams. This was great for business executives. What about everybody else? What about the people who don't understand AI, don't really understand how data is being used to manipulate them or influence them, depending on your genre? And there is a desperate need to make sure that everybody is empowered to have a voice in how data is being used to influence them, and how companies are going to use or are using AI to make decisions and recommendations about them. That we needed to create an empowered citizen of data science who knew what was going on, had enough awareness, enough education so that they could stand up and actively participate in this new world that's being created by AI and data.
Yeah. No, I think first of all, great vision behind coming up with the new book. And as you mentioned, I remember when you did the previous book. I was out there reading the book, and I thought, yeah, everything's kind of complete. But then you kind of when things kind of started evolving, there comes the need of another book, and you manage to write it again. And obviously a lot of learning that comes from the customers that you be with in deal in day to day as well. So hats off to you, and well done on the on this new book. So folks who are actually commenting as well, I see a lot of comments coming in from hashtag the Ravit Show. Please don't put a space, otherwise you might not enter the raffle. We already see 9 entries in there. So just have the hashtag the Ravit Show in without any spaces. So you'll enter the raffle after the first 20 minutes. We'll be announcing the winner, the first winner of the book, and you get a chance to read Bill's book. So stay tuned for that. Quick one, Bill, a few comments here. So Scott is asking, tell us about the toys on your shelf.
It figures that Scott would notice that. It's brilliant, Scott. So there's a lot of because I do lots of lectures across the globe. Yeah. I always find that when you've got stuff in the background, it's a good way to kind of keep people's attention. So see if I can do this properly. Over here, these are all a bunch of nutcrackers that I've collected over the years, and a little sort of Christmas scene beneath it here. Lots of autographed paraphernalia up here, like Billy Bean from Moneyball fame signed signed a cover of Sports Illustrated for me. Some of my favorite books are up here. There's even a bunch of Easter eggs hidden up there as well that I won't
Oh,
mention, but
wow.
you'll have to look closely. But I was actually in a movie once, and the VCR tape of that movie is actually up there. On this side over here, it's mostly family stuff, and fun, weird stuff at the top. Like I'm a big Bob Ross fan, for example. I could watch Bob Ross paint for hours. It's just like
Wow.
he starts off and I'm like, how's that going to turn into a mountain? It is a mountain. Oh, how did that happen? Right. So yeah, Scott. So I just like to collect things. Sometimes people send me things.
Yeah.
So they find it. So by the way, if you find something that's really cool, you think, hey, that should be on Schmarzo's shelf, send it to me. And we'll see if we can
Oh,
find
wow.
a place to put it on the shelf.
That's very cool. I'll keep that in mind. I definitely come across a lot of such toys and stuff. So now I know where I should be sending them. So it's like very much safe and people can actually look at it when you do these live sessions. Scott also mentions that, Bill, you should come to Big Data London. All the data ventures are there. I'll be there as well next month. So please try if you can.
God, I really, there's a lot of great people going to be there. Scott, I know you're going to be there and a bunch of other, the thing is, what I missed during COVID was the ability to go to these kind of events and
Hmm.
just chill and chat with people like Scott and others who have been in this industry a long time, are brilliantly knowledgeable of what's going on, and just sharing ideas back and forth over too many beers or too many donuts, depending on what time of day it is. So,
Hmm.
Scott, if I could swing it, I would be there, and maybe I can still get there. But I think these events are great, and I miss that collaboration with people like yourself.
Wow. If you are there, definitely we'll want to hang out with you. We'll need your time, Bill, and we'll keep you busy for sure. So
Keep me
can't wait.
busy and full of beer and fish and chips.
For sure. And for those who are joining us as well, for us, today's topic is more around AI and data literacy and why it is important for everyone. So if you have any questions for Bill, bring that on. I have a few questions already, Bill, that I see. And before I ask, I would like to pick these. First of all, Bill, a few folks like Rod is mentioning he
Hey,
already has
Rod.
your book.
By the way,
Yeah.
Rod, great jazz guitar player. He's
Oh,
great.
is it?
Oh God, yeah,
Awesome.
I've seen him play several times, and I'm just like totally jealous of what this guy can do.
Rod, you should put some post on LinkedIn so we can also watch you for sure. That's awesome. Marcus is out there. He likes your license plate, so
Oh,
which
isn't
is
that cool?
cool. Yes, definitely. Okay, so let's pick this one from YouTube. In your opinion, what are the risks involved when companies and organizations lack a data literate workforce? Interesting.
Good question. Really good question. And there's two problems that I think jump up. Number one is confirmation bias. If we don't have enough diversity of perspectives from everybody in the organization, we are very liable to build models, to include variables in those models that are not reflective of the culture of the entire organization. I think, for example, when I think about feature engineering and building models that deliver meaningful, relevant, responsible, and ethical outcomes, the people who have the best ideas around the features or variables and metrics that are better predictors of performance are at the front lines of the organization. They're not in the ivory tower. And so, the front lines of customer engagement, the front lines of operational execution, those are the people we need to make sure they're empowered. They understand their role and can embrace that. So I think one of the things that dangers is confirmation bias if you don't have that broad enough perspective. But the second one that scares me probably more than anything else
Mhm.
is understanding how our leaders make decisions without thinking through unintended consequences. And with AI, that scares me because if I build a bad AI model, it's going to make decisions millions, if not billions of times faster than me as a human. And I could actually optimize myself right out of business. And so the best way to sort of address this unintended consequences problem is, again, to bring everybody into the process. We're going to make a decision to do this. what are all the ways that things can go wrong? We have a technique, we leverage design thinking. By the way, I'm a huge design thinking fan. My art of thinking like a data scientist process has as much design thinking in it as it has data science. But we leverage design thinking techniques to help ideate all the things that could go wrong, so that
Right.
if we can identify all the things that can go wrong, we can start identifying variables and metrics that allow us to monitor for those activities. So I think confirmation bias is one big area, but the one I think is potentially disastrous that we as a society tend to run into all the time are the unintended consequences.
Okay, pretty interesting. Thanks for sharing that. And good question, Sonia, for bringing that up. Another interesting question from the audience that I would actually like to pick is this one around the soft skills. So, could you talk about the soft skills that complement technical AI and data skills, such as critical thinking or problem solving, which is like a little a follow up to the previous question, but it's something which is very important, I feel. But what are your thoughts, Bill?
Yeah, those are I design thinking. I'm sorry, jumped ahead to my third. Critical thinking is important. Everybody needs to be taught critical thinking. I think it's something we should teach, like starting with kindergartners. That the Pope didn't vote for a U.S. president. Trust me, he didn't. Right? It doesn't make he's not a resident. He can't vote. Right? And sorry, the world is not flat. Right? So we need to have critical thinking skills taught at an early age, that we learn to look at what we're being told, ask ourselves, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Look for credible peers against which we can validate that before we start jumping into believing things. And the problem solving skill, I think, is in the book, I talk about decision making frameworks and how you have to decompose a problem into its components so I can make thoughtful decisions. So I think both of those are really key, but I want to add a third one. I mentioned this in the previous one. I'm a huge believer in design thinking. And
Yeah.
there's two things about design thinking that I find very powerful. Number one, design thinking forces me to walk in the shoes of my stakeholders, to understand
True.
what they're trying to accomplish, what are their desired outcomes, what are their key decisions, what are their impediments, what are the benefits, and what are the KPIs and metrics against which they're going to measure success. So design thinking, to me, looks like a different flip side coin of economics. It's all about understanding how value is created. So I love that aspect of design thinking, which is why I've embraced it so heavily in a lot of my work. But the other thing about design thinking is that it's about empowerment, which is, of course, is another part in the book. And empowerment means things like all ideas are worthy of consideration. That means embracing an and mindset, not an or mindset. Like we can do this and that, not we can do this or that. Right? It's about creating this this mindset that seeks out diversity. It doesn't run away from diversity. It seeks
Mm-hmm.
out diversity as the fuel for driving friction, which leads to innovation. So I'm a huge believer of design thinking from the second point, because I find it helps to liberate and unleash the greatness that's inside of each and every one of us. So the soft skills I think are critical. And in fact, I would argue I think are more important than some of the technical skills, because heck, I can get Gen AI today to write the pseudocode to build an analytic score for me, right? Pretty soon maybe it's going to write a score for me altogether. But being able to understand the problem I'm trying to solve, the people it impacts, and how to solve that problem to make ethical, responsible, meaningful, relevant decisions are skills that are going to be with us forever, no matter what happens to the technology underneath it.
Yeah, I 100% agree, and I love that perspective, and also it also that human authenticity with the soft skill is something that can only happen when it can't, like, technical AI or technical skills can be actually be uh, we can get that through obviously Gen AI, like you mentioned, but soft skills is more like the human thing. So I agree. In the comments as well, we have Paul McLeod. He says yes, for critical thinking, profusion of AI will actually drive a new era of that, and not accepting any information, including without data, without reflection on its provenance and perspective. What do you think, Bill?
Oh, amen, Paul. Amen, brother Paul. Exactly. This is why I think we need to empower everybody to be a citizen of data science, to be a bit dubious of what we're being told, to think critically about the data that's being shown to us, the recommendations that are being put in front of us, and by the way, also to embrace our inner Tom Hanks. What I mean by that, remember the movie Big? Tom Hanks is in the movie, and there's a scene in the movie where they're evaluating these toys, and he raises his hand and says, "I don't get it." We need to be empowered as humans, educated as well, right? Educated, aware, and empowered to raise our hands and say, that doesn't make sense. That's missing this component. That's missing these groups of people. So to me, I think that's, Paul, you're spot on, is that critical thinking and empowerment are going to be more and more important as AI is being used to drive more and more of the decisions that influence each and every one of us every day.
Yes. I love it. These perspectives, I think I'm learning so much today, and I know this will go over an about an hour. But Bill, we've crossed the 20-minute mark, and now it's time for us to announce the first winner of the e-copy that we're
Oh,
giving
I hope
away.
it's me. I hope it's me. I hope it's me. Oh wait, I got
Let's
it.
see. All right. All the best to everyone participating. Those who joined late, you can actually type in hashtag the Ravit Show. And all right. Yeah, today, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'll make sure you have any copy of Bill's new book. But those who are participating, don't worry. We still have 2 books to go. We'll be doing more draws. So type in hashtag the Ravit Show, and we'll keep doing these draws where I'll put in. Oh, sorry. So I'm not drawing again. But we'll do that again in in 18 minutes. So that's there. All right. Another question. I know you spoke a little about ethical AI as well. So in your book, you talk about the ethical dimensions of AI and data. Can you elaborate on why an understanding of ethics is a necessary component of data literacy, Bill? Because we've heard about it a lot, but how does it like, what are your thoughts on it? Would love to know.
So the AI models that we're building will only do what we train them to do.
Mhm.
And the training is heavily dependent upon the variables and metrics around which we want to train it. While we always are ready to put financial metrics in and we're ready to put in operational metrics, sometimes we even put in customer metrics, which is good. There's several other dimensions of value creation that we don't always include in our models. For example,
Right.
employee satisfaction, employee retention, employee growth, employees empowerment. We don't always consider our partners and suppliers, our ecosystem, as part of that, because we have responsibility for building a healthy ecosystem for all of
Yep.
our partners. We don't sometimes include the communities in which we operate in, and the diversity factors. We don't sometimes include environmental factors. How reuse, recycling, and such, organic foods, and such, and ethics. Ethics can be coded as a variable. Ethics such as donations and charitable contributions and volunteering and activism and hiring transparency. There are all kinds of variables that we could actually put in to this. And I don't want to offend anybody with this next statement, but I actually believe that God is an economist, and that God, some of the lessons in the Bible are all about economic lessons, about how do we create value. But the lessons in the Bibles, and I'm sure there's other religious books out there, they look at value much more broadly than we do. And we suffer as a society, and we suffer as people because we have a very narrow short-term view of value, when value is created over time and long-term ramifications. So I believe that we all have responsibility to think through, like the golden rule, really simple. Treat others as you'd want them to treat you. How do we turn that into metrics? How do we, and brainstorm with people. What kind of variables and metrics around ethics should be in our models if we really want to deliver responsible and ethical outcomes?
Yeah, I think 100%. These are great points, Bill, that you're sharing around the ethical dimensions. In the book, you have obviously amplified it much further. In For those obviously who are wanting to learn more about the ethical dimensions of AI and data, I think Bill's book is something you wouldn't want to miss, and that's one of the reasons I have it. I've read it and I wanted to do this to make sure where we are also giving three more people the chance to learn and obviously educate yourself in the data and AI literate and become more literate. All right, so there's one question here from Paul, a big one. So I have a question, an open one. In your book, do you propose treating all customers the same? And the second part, interacting with them based on what they do and how that will work out, or interacting with them based upon general attributes classes is potential obvious rude behavior in is potentially intrusive rude. C is effectively predicated. This is a big question in my view. I lean towards myself, but data privacy forces us towards A or C.
I
Very, very interesting.
This is a really, really good question. And this is what the concept of nanoeconomics is about, which is really about treating people as responsibly and effectively and ethically as possible as individuals. So I don't agree with treating all customers the same. I think it's like, when you make decisions based on averages, at best, you're going to get average results. And I think in our healthcare system, for example, we tend to treat people based on averages. And our healthcare system in the US sucks. Right? We spend a lot of money and get very poor outcomes from what we spend. So the concept of nanoeconomics, I believe I talk about in the book a couple of times, is really about understanding who people are as individuals and treating them accordingly, which means you're going to have to, again, the general attributes classes doesn't work. It's another one based on averages. And I think you're right, Paul, that data privacy wants to force us to A and C, but I think there's a way we can achieve B even with data privacy. For example, we know we can't make decisions based on protected classes, right? Just can't. Right? And by the way, we need to go and make sure we understand the proxy measures for protected classes so we don't include those in our models as well. But it doesn't prevent me from providing very personalized healthcare recommendations or personalized vacation recommendations or personalized, shopping recommendations based on what you've done in the past, what people like you have done, right, to become very focused. Because I do think that what our end goal is to treat people as the individual humans that they are, because we're not groups. We hang in groups, but we're all different. And I think AI done well, again, using this concept of nanoeconomics, I think that we can achieve B and not have to settle for A and not be forced into C.
Very interesting. And this is a huge one, Paul. And
It's a really hard question. It's a good question.
Good question. And at the same time, I like how Bill, you kind of went out there and obviously answered it. So thanks for that. We have another question here from Kurt. So how do you ensure in design thinking that you discover things your end user hasn't thought of because they are not invented yet? So that's an interesting one.
Hey, Kurt, how you doing? That's a good question. So one of the things that I like about design thinking is it starts by understanding what it is you're trying to achieve. What is it you're trying to achieve? It doesn't look at the process. It doesn't look at the capabilities. It just says, what is it you're trying to achieve? You're trying to the exercise that they did at the Stanford Design School that I attended. The end objective was, how do I figure out how to get to the design school on Stanford? Because it's not really well marked and it's in the middle of the campus and it's really hidden. But my end objective, my desired outcome, was to get there. And then we went through a bunch of brainstorming exercises. We had, Post-it notes, we had wooden blocks, we had Lego blocks, we had Lincoln logs, and everybody had a chance to brainstorm. This, by the way, this is where all ideas are worthy of consideration are critical. Because what we find happens in these brainstorming sessions, you get 4, 5, 6 people with diverse backgrounds. They may not even like each other, but very diverse backgrounds. Is you start taking ideas, rationales from each other, and you start finding ways to blend them together, to bend them and to twist them together differently. Somebody has an idea here like this. You say, well, that's not quite right. What if I took this part and I did this? And what if becomes such an powerful enabler? So the idea, I think, behind design thinking that makes it really effective is you start with, what are you trying to accomplish? Where does you know where the journey is going to end, but then you bring in diverse perspectives. And I know in our society, diverse perspectives is something we try to avoid, but we need to embrace diversity. You need to embrace conflict. You need to embrace arguing. Well, that's how humans, we always argue, right? You argue about which is right. And what you find sometimes, instead of compromising on the least worst option, sometimes you'll synergize to the best option. So Kurt, that's how I find it works really well, is start with that outcome. Make sure you got diverse teams and diverse perspectives. Make sure everybody in that team is empowered to have a voice, which is what kind of the design thinker lead does, and make sure everybody has a voice. And then embrace conflict as a way to drive innovation.
Yeah, I like it. And good question there, Scott. Definitely brings up a lot around the design thinking. And I love your point here. Bill, what you spoke about. Asking questions as humans. Obviously, we need to go out there and question more. Obviously, because that kind of brings us to a different view altogether. Sometimes, and then there are many more perspectives as well. Yeah.
Yeah. A recommendation: if you're talking to somebody who has an opinion that you find different to what you have, and it pisses you off or makes you upset, stop, take a deep breath, and ask them very cordially, what are the rationales behind your opinion? And when I've done that, what I have been surprised about is how sometimes we share a lot of the same rationales, what we're trying to do. Now, they've got a different frame for how they think they're going to achieve that. But I find that if you look and focus on what people's rationales are, you'll find ground for collaboration. You can say, well, I agree with those rationales. If those are our base rationales, how can we collaborate? How can we bring together these different perspectives to achieve a better outcome that's the synergy of what I'm seeking and the synergy of what you're seeking? So again, opinions, everybody's got opinions of the term, right? Opinions are like, blah, blah, blah. Everybody's got one, right? But rationale is now starting to understand, how do they think and why are they thinking that way? And that's where you find that glue that allows humans to become human and to embrace diversity, not run away from it.
Yeah, I love it. And thanks for sharing that point. And we have a few comments here. It's flooded. So you have many questions, Bill, but let me take this one real quick. So Mark says, Bill, you're describing the strength of the scientific method, so which is very cool.
And by the way, Mark runs a company, a great company, that's based on not just a scientific method, but also on being very human and realistic in that process. Mark, giving a call out to you, buddy.
Awesome. So definitely go and check out Mark's work there. In also Bill, another one. Code obviously mentioned. Well said. We just make sure diversity includes people who think differently, which is very cool.
Yes, and seek those people out.
Yeah.
Seek out those people who think differently. Right?
Yeah.
Find somebody you don't like to work with. Bring them on your team.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. Rod, the power of a team with diverse perspectives is like rock tumbler. Put all of the rocks in the tumbler, let the rumble around, and the outcomes are beautiful and polished ideas, which is perfect. So thanks for sharing that. Another one here from David. Bill, what's amazing about data and AI literacy is that we can use it as a neutral topic to address issues like bias and privacy without stoking the more controversial dimensions like gender and racial diversity, which is an amazing point.
So, Ravit, I'm going to pause right here. So the questions and comments are getting are exactly what I like about social media, especially on LinkedIn. All the people have made comments. I know most of the people have made comments, and they're all brilliant people. They all bring different perspectives to that brilliance. And when you can bring together these different perspectives, greatness happens. But we got to make sure that everybody has a chance to speak their voice and that everybody understands that their job to step up. I love this, the definition of citizenship. And I got this from my friend John Morley. And John Morley had put it out. It's going to be a quote on the book on the back of the book. But I got the quote. I was like, that fits into the book. And he talks about citizenship and what citizenship is. Citizenship means it's a proactive state, meaning that you must stand up. No one's going to give you citizenship. You must stand up and own it, right? It's about having a proactive and meaningful stake in building a better world. And I chose that word citizen for that specific reason, because you can't, if you're going to sit back on and wait for AI to help you out, you are already screwed, right? Empower yourself to get involved in this conversation. Demand that you have a voice in this conversation. Don't sit back. And like David said here, by focusing on this, we can address, neutral topics like bias and privacy, and not get all hung up on some of the gender and racial diversity issues that tear this country apart. Let's embrace this. Everybody's empowered to have a voice.
I love it. In similar comments that we kind of also getting, but interesting ones. I think it's important to have relevant debates rather than debate for the sake of it. State what the outcome it helps keep debates moving forward rather than all over the conversation. So, what do you think about debates as well, Bill? I'm pretty sure you obviously host a lot of debates as well, but also participate in many. But what's your take on that?
I love debates. I think what debates force me to do is to constantly challenge myself on whether I have the right, more holistic perspective. And what I find out most of the time is that I don't. It's and then these debates, I'm always learning something from somebody else who has a different perspective. Again, it gets back down to that rationale component. They have a different set of rationale. And if I can understand what their rationale is, I can learn from that. And by the way, we are in, the world is changing, I think. And I think it's AI, especially Gen AI, is happening this. The age of knowledge is being replaced by the age of learning. And what I mean by that is what you know isn't nearly as important as what you're going to be learning. And so to me, it's if I can put myself on walking on some hot coals to realize that I'll never know everything. It's a learning game that I've always used in every interaction I have to validate, test, sometimes blend. Sometimes, people have ideas that are just like, oh, that's a little wacky, right? The world's really not flat. Sorry. But even then, they might have some nuggets you can pull out. And I'm always trying to find nuggets, because I find when I pull nuggets together, I get new ideas occur. That's when you blend and you break apart and you synergize these different ideas together.
Yeah, I like it. And just a little connected question in terms of obviously synergizing and also bringing some people into the game. So, in your experience, what role do communities, forums, or social networks play in fostering AI and data literacy, and how can people tap into these resources? Do you have any suggestions on that front, Bill?
Yeah, it's interesting. They're going to answer different questions. I'm going to answer this question, then I'm going to answer the question you're going to ask. So, get involved. Get involved. Don't be shy. This is not a time to be shy, right? This is about a time to take the proactive stance, to get involved, to learn. Right? Don't get involved just to hear yourself speak. Debate for, like Pierre said, debate for debate's sake. No one cares about that. Make sure you're educated and aware. Think about it. Offer ideas. Push back. Ask for explanation. Ask for where sources came from. And look at the credibility. But get involved in that. And so, I love the social media stuff. I tell people, follow me on LinkedIn, not because I'm smart, but because the people who are commenting on my stuff are brilliant. They have such great experience. Some of the people who've seen them on this call already, they're the ones who are sharing ideas back and forth, and we don't always agree. Mark, for example, Mark and I, while we probably agree 98% of the time, 2% of the time we don't. And it's that 2% of the time where learning happens.
Yeah.
So let me answer the question I thought you were going to answer.
Yeah.
Which is, when you have communities doing collaboration, how do you ensure you don't get watered down results? How do
Exactly.
you ensure, if you're trying to synergize everybody together, you tend to want to compromise onto the least worst option as a leader? And leader is not something that is given to you. Leadership, like citizenship, is something that you take. As a leader, you should always seek not to compromise on the least worst option as groups fight, but try to synergize across all of them to come up with the best option, which means that some people's ideas aren't going to be considered, aren't going to be taken into account. They're all ideas are worthy of consideration does not mean all ideas are worth a shit, right? All ideas are worthy of consideration means that everybody has a right to have a voice, but everybody does not have a right to have what they thought integrated back into what's going on. They should have a voice in what's going on, but they're not, everybody's not going to be treated, going to get the same opportunity to present their stuff or integrate their stuff in. Now, as a leader, that means you're going to have to make tough trade-off decisions, right? Trade-off decisions about what you're going to do. That's the mark of leadership, tough trade-off decisions. This is where AI needs to be challenged. AI models should also be forced to make tough trade-off decisions. We should architect the variables and metrics that comprise the AI model, the AI utility function, in a way where it's forced to make trade-off decisions. Let me give you a really simple example. I go to the store in the morning and trying to figure out what cereal I'm going to buy. Captain Crunch or granola. Captain Crunch tastes good. It's a lot more fun. Granola is better for me, blah, 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 or oatmeal, right? And depending on my situation, depending on my intent, depending on the context of what's going on around me, I'll make that trade-off decision. We all make trade-off decisions every day. Think about the decisions you make every day about where to go eat, where to go to the store, what to do. Right? We're making that trade-off decisions. AI needs to be forced to make those trade-off decisions. So it has to look at the context of the situation, the intent of the user, and this current situation in order to make that trade-off decision.
I think spot on. You already answered what I was kind of obviously wanting to learn about. So thanks for that, Bill. We have a lot of questions, but before that, as promised, it's time for us to announce the second winner. So let's see who it is. Let me bring up the draw here. How many people? 90 people entries. For those who don't know, the book I'll make it in a, this is the book that we are giving away. So what you need to do is type in hashtag the Ravit Show and you'll enter the raffle. Now let's go and draw this one. Let's see who the winner is this time. All right.
Oh,
Paul.
Paul, hey.
Paul, congrats. You've asked some interesting questions. You made some interesting points. It's good to see that you win this book. Please feel free to reach
Yeah,
out
the
to me
gods are smiling on you, Paul. The gods rewarded you for some really hard questions. So congratulations.
and great point for sure. So thanks for that. Let me bring some questions up here and some points as well, Bill, from our audience, so I don't miss out in keeping the time in mind. So Gopal Krishna has a question real quick here. Images are going to be labeled as AI generated or not? How do we see things pan out in the structured space? What do you think, Bill?
So I'm assuming you say structured space, you're talking about structured data, like rows and columns. This
Yeah,
is a great question. And I've had discussions with a lot of people about if we can use generative AI to help us make sense out of unstructured data, how do we do the same thing with structured data? I don't have the answer, by the way. I don't know. But to me, it seems like it's begging that question. It's begging the question of how do we, the structured space seems to be dominated by SQL. Right? We're always forced to use SQL to interact, and SQL sucks, right? It's not nearly as insightful as what we're seeing from generative AI and large language models and such. it seems like there's a huge opportunity there. I can't figure it out. I'm not smart enough to be able to do that. But I've got a feeling that there are people who are a heck of a lot smarter than me who are taking a look at this thing and saying, wait a second, can I use something like a generative AI and actually have it, without having to use SQL, tell me who my most important customers are, tell me which of my customers are at risk, tell me which customers are likely to respond to which they mean, without having to write a bunch of SQL and build models. Can it actually do it for me? I don't know, but I think it's a great question. And it certainly has me scratching my head thinking, there's got to be something more here than what we're seeing today.
Right. And I'm laughing as well. Scott put SQL sucks.
It does. It's so hard to do anything with it. It takes so much work. And by the way, get that comma in the wrong space and
Oh my God. All right. Thanks for sharing that. Good point. Another one, you're from George Perikin. Hey, George, good to see you. Why shouldn't we leave those decisions to humans, AI informed, human made?
I think the vast majority of decisions that we are making should be human informed and AI informed and human made. I think a lot of the area of analytics we use today are really should be about augmenting human intelligence, but there are certain cases where the human can't make the decision fast enough. Is that true? I think about autonomous vehicles. To me, this is an interesting area of, I'm going to call this, instead of AI, call it autonomous analytics. Analytics that can process massive amounts of data in an ever-changing environment and can make real-time second decisions with minimal human intervention. There are a growing number of use cases where autonomous analytics, I may not want humans making decisions when I can have machines doing them for me in areas where humans have proven to be not as effective. Self-driving cars, so far, humans seem to be better. I got to tell you, I drive a lot, and I see a lot of humans who are really shitty drivers. And it's an area where I think we're going to see, in a limited number of situations, where autonomous analytics are going to become more and more powerful, where humans may not make the decisions as much as humans will provide oversight into the decisions that are being made, sort of maybe retrospectively analyzing these decisions. But I do think, generally speaking, the vast majority of analytics being used today should be used to inform decision-making, not replace human decision-making.
Very good point. I like that. Thanks for that question, George. Quickly jumping on to another quick question from David. But most of marketing in product teams is generally not data and analytically minded leaders. So innovation in ML use cases come from the data scientist, not the business. So should that team sit centrally to drive value or otherwise? What do you think?
Good question, Dave. So I talk to customers about how do you structure your data science organization. I actually really believe in the hub and spoke model. Let me explain that. I think there's a hub of data scientists and data engineers whose job is to build composable, reusable analytic modules and data products. And the source for what they're building actually comes from the data science teams who are sitting out in the spokes with the business teams who have been empowered to think like a data scientist, right? That we have actually taught the business stakeholders how to think like data scientists. So as they're looking at business problems, we have a natural linkage and communication point between the business stakeholders and the data science teams to understand where and how we apply data and analytics. And then once we've sort of found a product out there in the spoke, you take that data science team, the data scientists, data engineers, and ML engineers, and you bring them back to the hub where they're actually going to productize that. And by the way, what it means is that people in the hub, after they productize, they go back out to the spokes, and you create this sort of environment where you have a lot of I would argue that a lot of the best ideation of where and how to apply data and analytics is going to come from your business stakeholders. It should come from your marketing and product teams, because they should be at the front of customer engagement and operational execution. If they're not, they've not been trained properly, because I do think they need to be taught how to think like a data scientist. One of the books I've written, blah, blah, blah. But I love this hub and spoke strategy. And I've seen a couple of companies who have done that really well. And the end result is not only do they get, engineered analytic models and data products, but they also have a higher retention rate because their data science teams are bouncing back and forth from, fun kind of innovative projects to, I got to operationalize that, blah, blah, blah. But now more fun innovation products again. So it does seem to really help from a personal development and growth perspective for your data science and data teams.
I like it. In the hub and spoke model, definitely I closely follow even Dave Mariani. He talks a lot around it, the founder of At Scale. And Bill, I really like your approach there. Thanks for that.
But I will say on that, you may not be able to start off in hub and spoke. As you mature the organization, your initial approach is probably maybe you centralize it. What happens today really is it's all fragmented, which doesn't benefit anybody. So the first logical step is probably to centralize these folks and have collaboration. But as you mature as an organization, you build out the kind of right workflows and processes and workspaces. I think that hub and spoke architecture becomes something you kind of mature your way into.
Very interesting.
Want to give more detail?
No, I think that's good. I love your energy, Bill. So I'll keep going. Quick one from your Andrea. Andrea is yours. So hi, Andrea. Hi, Bill. Thanks for raising awareness on the importance of the broad data literacy in organization. I totally support it. One quick question: what worked best in your experience when developing top management data and AI skills? Very important question, I feel.
Wow. This is a tough question because everything we talk about in empowerment means that authority and responsibility gets pushed down from top management to the front lines of the organization. And it's not uncommon for top management to feel threatened by that. Now, they've risen through the organization. They've gotten to where they are because they've endured more pain than anybody else. And the idea of giving up power to somebody else is very foreign to them. And so I will tell you that the idea of empowerment takes a very mature management team to realize that the best way to grow an organization is to actually give up power and place it in other parts of the organization. Now, that's easier to do if you've convinced them that data and analytics are an economic asset, right? If you've already basically got them to believe that the data and economics are economic assets like we've never seen before, like data. Data never depletes. Data never wears out. The same data set, if architected correctly, can be used across an infinite number of use cases at zero marginal cost. There are no other assets like that. Yeah. Right. And so if you can get management to buy into the fact that these are unique economic assets, and the way to get the most out of these economic assets is to basically push power, responsibility, authority down in the organization, I think that's the best way to do it. But it's going to take a very mature, forward-thinking data management team to embrace that kind of concept that says the best ideas aren't going to come from me. The best ideas are going to come from the people in the front lines of the organization.
Very interesting point, and definitely a very difficult question out there. So thanks for putting that out, Andrea. Opens up a lot of directions where we can go. But shifting gears a little bit here on what's trending these days. Obviously, as automation and AI continue to evolve, how do you see the landscape of employment changing? What role do AI and data literacy play in this, Bill? What are your thoughts?
I think with any technology, jobs get lost. I mean, with the phone, when people started doing direct dial themselves back in the olden days, the number of operators that used to operate declined dramatically. And it's just, toll booth collectors, less and less of those. Technology tends to wipe out some jobs. But I actually think AI is going to create more and more jobs. I think you're going to have new categories of job around ethics, monitoring. I I think there's going to be opportunities for people to embrace AI as a way to make them both professionally more successful and drive their personal development. Let me share with you a little experiment I'm running with some of my students right now.
Yeah.
So as many of you know, I've got a methodology called the Art of Thinking Like a Data Scientist. It's a 8-step process that integrates a lot of design thinking concepts, a lot of data science concepts, a lot of economic concepts. And each one of those 8 steps has a series of design canvases that helps to understand, how is value created across your stakeholders? What are my use cases? What are the features? Blah, blah, blah. All is really designed to educate business people so they're prepared to collaborate with their data science and data teams to create new sources of value, to provide that clear line of sight from data to value. So what I decided to do, I said, can I integrate Gen AI, and I'm using Bing, by the way, and given everything I've already got, what if I integrate that into my class? How does that impact each of these 8 steps? And I've written a couple of blogs on it recently, and my 3rd blog is coming out next week that sort of talks about what I've learned. But what I've learned is that if I spend the time to really understand the problem I'm trying to solve, where value is created, impediments, the risks, unintended consequences, all things we've talked about, all the things that are very human-centric, if I define all that up front, and I use that to set the context of my prompt with my Gen AI tool, the things I can do with it, the questions I can ask, and the conversations I can have with it are really shocking. And it's not that it's helping me to speed up processes as much as it's giving me opportunities to explore new ideas. What if I looked at these variables? What about these variables, right? I can ask, like I said before, I can ask it to tell me if these are the decisions I'm trying to make, if these are the variables against which I'm measuring success, what are some of the analytic models that I need to build? By the way, I need to define to it what an analytic model is. What are some of the analytic models I should build? How does that help me drive recommendations? What are the features embedded in that? And how will the users use that? And it comes back with answers. Sometimes the answers are brilliant. Sometimes they're terrible. But if it's terrible, try reframing it. Anyway, the result has been I've captured all my learnings. I've got a little ebook that I've been working on. It's over 120 pages of everything I've taken away from this process and how it's changed this. And so, long story, short question, long answer is, I think if we have a process that's very much focused on driving responsible, meaningful, relevant, and ethical outcomes, if we think holistically about how value is created, that Gen AI can help us actually become more human in how we start exploring how we use data and analytics to drive these kinds of outcomes. It's fueling my natural curiosity. By the way, as humans, we're all born with curiosity. And then when we get in our school systems, they rub curiosity out, right? Standardized tests, standardized curriculum, standardized classrooms, everything's standardized. Standardized is where AI thrives. Humans thrive around curiosity. And so what I found is by doing this experiment, and I hope to share more and more of my results in this, is that it's fueling my curiosity, which is driving my creativity and hopefully leading to new innovation.
Yeah, I love it. And thanks for sharing that to a lot of audience, because day in and out, I think every one of us actually think about it, that will AI takes job, a lot of job, but looks like there'll be a lot of creation of jobs that will happen. So that's a good news for those who are listening and those who are kind of confused about it. A few comments, Bill, and for those who are kind of also wondering, what do you need to do to win the book? Obviously, we'll be announcing the next winner in a few minutes. So yes, what you need to do is type in hashtag the Ravit Show and you will enter the raffle. Our last winner was Paul McLeod. Congrats again. We already have, I guess, 26 entries. So we'll be choosing another winner real soon towards the end of the show. Now I'll take a quick question in a few comments here. One from Gregory. So plus one on taking a stand, the big things, and not to be shamed into conformity by political correctness, which is very cool. Also, Kimberly has a comment here. She says it enhances your curiosity velocity. So
I like that term. That's a good term. Curiosity velocity. I like that. It does. It's exactly what it's done, Kimberly. It's really,
Yeah.
it allows me to ask. It's kind of funny. So I'm sitting in my Caribou coffee. There's a Caribou coffee down the street here. I go and have coffee at, and also I'll just start clapping and cheering because I tried something and it worked. And the people around
Hmm.
me are like, "Are you playing a game or are you wagered on something?" It's like, no. It's like my curiosity velocity just reached a new level. So I
Oh,
love that
wow.
term.
Awesome. That's very cool.
People think I'm weird. You know what? People think I'm weird because I am weird.
You are who you are, and you're good at it, Bill. So that's why we all like you. Don't worry about that. So Paul is asking, I would be really interested to hear about the way single version of the truth and centralized data management is viewed in 2023. I really like this question, Paul, and that's why I picked that up. When it is less commonly pursued, was it a waste of time or worth the goal of frustrating exercise in reverse abstraction? Has it unjustly been abandoned, or was it never worthwhile? What are your thoughts there?
I think single version of the truth is one of the biggest lies in our industry. So, and I think the problem is it became an endpoint, not a means to an end. It became an endpoint, and
Mhm.
organizations would spend huge amounts of money to create a single version of customer, for example. And let's be really honest: not all data we have about customers is important, right? And or valuable, right? And so how do you determine what data is valuable? Well, you have to go back and think, what are my customers trying to achieve? What are the desired outcomes? What are their key decisions? What's their journey map look like? Right. And what you're going to find is you can capture all kinds of data about customers. 90% of it probably doesn't matter at all. And so the single version of the truth, it became something that we got to do this first. No, you can build out a a pragmatic view of your customers, one use case at a time, capture the data that's relevant for that use case and only that use case, and don't worry about capturing data that's not critical for that customer. So again, I always find that when I talk to customers about single version of the truth, I say you're wasting your time, and that's not how value is created, right? Value
Mhm.
is created by understanding. You start the conversation by understanding, how do my customers measure value creation, and how do I help them achieve that, and what are the data that I need to do that? And it's not all the data, right? It's kind of like what data lakes failed miserably, and duh, right? We would the big analysts, the big firms would say, oh, you got to build a data lake, put all your data into a data lake, and then open the doors and let users be fruitful. And so they spent 3, 4, 5 years putting 35, 40 data sets into their data lake. And then they opened the doors to the business users, and all they got were crickets because it didn't help solve the problems they're trying to address. And so
Mhm.
we get the means and ends confused all the time in technology. Our job in technology is to create value, not to build technology, not to build data lakes. Our job is to create value. And I think if we focus on value creation, then things like single version of the truth, they don't make any sense anymore. You'll still want customer access to customer data, but it's not going to be all of it because you're not going to need all of it.
Interesting. Very interesting. Thanks for sharing that, Bill. In nice question, Paul. Also, Kimberly has another bit. Very cool comment. My truth, your truth, the truth. That's very true. All right. It's time for us to announce the third winner. So let's do it. Let's do the drum roll up here. Right. For those who have participated and won as well, congrats. For those who have participated, here's your chance. Let's see who the winner is. And the winner is Shiv Sagar Mishra. Congratulations. You win one book, one ebook, and here's Bill's book. But for those who obviously didn't get the opportunity, you can still find it on Amazon. It's on Pact's website as well. Bill,
I do have one request. One request.
yeah,
If you buy the book, I appreciate if you can post a picture of yourself holding the book, put it on social media, preferably LinkedIn, and then tell me what you found useful, most useful from the book. I'm trying
yeah,
to learn as well. So again, if you buy the book, post a picture of yourself with the book holding it, hopefully with a smile, and then give me the bullet points about what you found most interesting. There's a chapter in here that is clearly my favorite chapter by far. I'll be curious to see if you can figure out which one it is. So that's my ask. Thank you.
Okay, very interesting. And also, I feel for those who also have feedback for Bill, don't forget to mention that as well. What you need for the next book, because Bill does it so easily, and I'm pretty sure in just next few months he'll be like, "Oh, Ravit, I've written another book, and it's in the publishing stage." I'm pretty sure, Bill, even if you say so, that
No,
you
no
say
more
no.
death marches. No more book death marches.
But I'm now curious. Obviously, I'll take that, off air. Which is your favorite chapter? I'm definitely curious to learn about that, Bill. But it's a well-written book. I loved learning about each and everything around the AI and data literacy. So thanks for putting that together. Obviously, to wrap up, I would I'll ask you this: if you could recommend one actionable step for our listeners to take right after the podcast to kickstart their journey in becoming AI and data literate, what would it be?
Give a copy of this book to a student because
Okay,
that's our future. Um,
nice.
I've given out several copies to my coffee shop.
Hmm.
They're basically in their 20s, either in college or haven't gone to college, and the future is them. And so, as much as we need to be educated ourselves, we need to be looking at the next generation and making sure that they're prepared for this world of data and AI. If we think we're struggling with it, let's make sure they have a leg up on taking advantage of this. So that's my one recommendation: buy the book, walk up to somebody and say, "Read this." And that
All right.
nothing could honor me more, make me feel better than to have people do that.
Wow, this is amazing. And Bill, definitely will do that, and we'll make sure it reaches as many people as it can, and obviously the students who can go out and make that difference in the data and AI world. People love your energy. I love your energy. Thanks for doing this live session. I know, keeping the time in mind. Trust me, folks who are attending. I've kept busy for I've kept Bill busy for almost 2 hours now. Even behind the scenes, we've had a chat, and it's been a while since we got this opportunity. But Bill, next time, if you're coming next month to Big Data London, we'll definitely hang out, and we'll do a live session maybe at Big Data London too. So it will be super fun for our audience. But this was pretty interesting. One last question for those who are watching your show. If folks want to reach out to you, which is the best place? And
LinkedIn.
I'm pretty sure LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn is the
LinkedIn.
best place.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I mean, the Instagram. I can't figure out how to do anything for me. My daughter's got it mastered. Don't ask me about some of the other things like Snapchat and such. I'm an old dog. I go to LinkedIn. Bark, bark, bark. That's where you're going to find me.
I love it. And you obviously are the most active on LinkedIn, and you share some gold nuggets there on a daily basis. So thanks for that, Bill. But this was interesting. Thanks to our lovely audience for joining us today. And definitely, if you like our show, don't forget to subscribe or follow us. And definitely reach out to Bill and ask him some more interesting questions for sure. All right,
Thank you,
everyone.
everybody. Ravit, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
It's a pleasure, Bill. Thank you.